Welcome to Bryer's Music Showcase. I'm Bryer and welcome back to another video. And folks, we've made it. This is the final episode of my 70s series. And of course, we're talking about 1979. So if you've been living under a rock and you've missed pretty much every single episode of this, then just a quick reminder, this is a series where I go through every year of the 1970s and I name my top 5 albums. Of course, this is just my opinion, and I'm only restricted to what I have in my collection. 79, really strong way to go out. Some terrific albums that came out in this year. And so it was actually kind of tough picking my top 5 yet again. And even my other mentions were kind of tough choosing. But of course, that's where you guys come in. Of course, after the video, make sure you comment below what your thoughts on my list is, and of course let me know your favorite albums of 1979, because of course there's always going to be some I'm going to be missing out. So without further ado, let's begin. As always, we will begin with number 5 on the list. Now this is probably the most weirdest choice, probably the weirdest choice in this whole series, but of course I love this person. So if you're from the US or the UK, you're not going to know this person probably. But if you're from Japan, you may know this person. So the album is called University Street, and the artist, Maria Takeyoshi. Again, I know you're probably thinking, how did a Japanese artist make the top 5? Trust me, I was kind of debating, should I put this in the top 5? Or should I just have it be an honorable mention? And I actually re-listened to this album just before recording this. And like, okay, yeah, it has to be in the top 5. So, for those who don't know, Maria Takeyoshi is a pretty big artist in Japan. Of course, she started in '78. I didn't include her debut in the '78 video because I think she would do better. And already on her second album, this is a big step up. Again, her vocals just really great, just really good. It's not the most like mind-blowing vocals you're ever going to hear, but it's just perfect for the type of pop music that she does. Again, like I just said, her music is kind of more on the poppy, sort of pop rock, kind of soft rock sort of vein. And this is kind of a quasi concept album. I'm using concept album kind of loosely because it's not like a story or anything. But according to my research, there's not much information I could find that's in English. But of course, this was around the time she was graduating from university, and so of course she's kind of reflecting on that period of her life. She started pretty young, if I'm not mistaken. Granted, I can't really give the song titles because, if you can see, it's in Japanese, so I can't really give you the titles, unfortunately. But trust me. And also, sadly, it's not there. A lot of her albums aren't on Spotify, so you're gonna have to try to find this on YouTube or whatever, maybe iTunes. I don't know. But trust me, this is some fantastic stuff. Some really catchy, really good melodies all throughout. Let's see what else is there. Like, again, there's even some moments that will remind you of certain things. Like the first song. I believe it's called University Street. But yeah, there's like a whole part where it has like a horn part where if you really hear it, it's very reminiscent of Penny Lane by the Beatles, which of course she was a fan of. So you have some moments of that. Again, just has some great feel of nostalgia. Kind of looking back on your younger years, I guess. There's a couple covers. Again, I forgot I can't really give you the title, but there's a couple covers apparently. And there's some parts where she does sing in English, and she actually does a really good job singing in English. You definitely do hear her accent, but it's definitely not distracting by no means. It is terrific. Yes, so let's see what there's not really much else to say, but again, really give her a chance if you haven't heard her before. It's fantastic stuff. So let's go over the packaging, of course. So the disc comes in this nice orange color. Very nice. Okay, and then here's the booklet. Pretty big booklet, I must say. And it comes with a lot of good photos here. And some parts in Japanese I can't read. Now here's now this one is in English because she actually does sing this one in English, and I believe this one was a cover. Let's see, words and music by Carla Bonoff. Of course, if you know Carla Bonoff, she actually does a cover of one of her songs. Let's see, it's called "Isn't It Always Love?" That's what it was called. And actually some of the music was actually, and on the covers, you can see they actually credit some American people, some American musicians played on this track. So again, some of you might be thinking I'm losing my marbles, but you'd be surprised. So that is number 5 for me. And now we move on to number 4. Now this band has appeared in the series a couple times. Actually, this is going to be their 3rd appearance, if I'm not mistaken. So Styx return once again, this time with Cornerstone. Now, I hear some mixed opinions on this particular album. So, of course, Styx were known for their kind of hard rock with little hints of progressive rock into it. Still very commercial sounding. This album really leans in the commercial sounding. To some people might say a sellout? No. To me, no. I still think this is a very good album, and I will defend it till I die. Anyhow, produced by the band themselves. Kind of interesting. Starts out with Lights, of course. That's a really good Tommy Shaw song. I think that's a good one. It's a good song he did. And then you have a Dennis song afterwards with Why Me, a very good song. That's one I also enjoy. I love the horns on that track. And I love that little keyboard breakdown in the middle section. Just a very memorable melody, and some good guitars to accompany it as well. Now we get to the 3rd song. And it's really, this song is what polarizes people. And of course I'm talking about the song Babe, which was a #1 hit single for them. Of course written by Dennis, and this was actually a song he had written for his wife for their either a birthday, I believe it was a birthday. And of course Dennis had no intentions of releasing it initially, but once executives heard it, they're like, you gotta make that a single. And of course he did, and it did become a huge hit. And I don't care what people say, I still love it. I'm a sucker for ballads. What are you gonna do about it? But yeah, great song. Then you have Never Say Never, another great, very good song. Then you have one of Tommy's big, kind of a minor hit for them. You have Boat on the River, just a very interesting song. Definitely has a sort of French sort of sound, or something you hear. One of those, scenes in a movie, you're kind of just floating around in the river, maybe in Venice, maybe. You have Dennis playing accordion, which of course he actually did start out playing accordion, which is kind of cool. He was able to use it on the Styx album. Borrowed Time, really another good rock song on here. Then you have another Dennis ballad with First Time. Again, sucker for ballads. What can I do? Then you have Eddie, which is a James Young song, which was actually a song. It was inspired by Edward Kennedy. of course, John F. Kennedy's John F. Kennedy's brothers, who was going to run for president, but this song was telling him don't run for president. I guess it's kind of a cautionary tale, because I guess it came about because of what happened to John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. So I guess it's kind of like a cautionary warning. Don't keep the curse coming. That's my interpretation, at least. And then it closes out with a solid song with "Love in the Midnight." Solid song to go out. But again, a divisive album. But to me, the songs are good enough for me to make the top 5. And of course, I've listened to this album a ton. I have quite a bit of history with this album, so there you have it. Let's go over the packaging. So here is the disc. Pretty plain. Not much to say about it. Now this one actually folds out. So on the first side, it just gives you the imagery again, the front and back. And this side, you have blankness. I have no idea what this is supposed to be. I don't know. Then you have pictures of the band here. Let's see, what's there? Oh yeah, the other side. The other side has all the lyrics. So a nice little mini lyric sheet, if you need one. All right, so that is number 4. Moving along to my number 3. Now, this next album was huge when it came out. It definitely was this band's biggest album and spawned so many singles, and some of them could be some of my favorite songs ever. So, the band is Supertramp. And of course, I'm talking about Breakfast in America. It's been a while since we've talked about Supertramp in this series. I believe the last time we talked about them was in '74 for Crime of the Century. And Crime of the Century is my second favorite. This is my favorite. And of course, you can argue Crime of the Century is technically a better album, but I don't know, the songs really hit home for me on this one. But let's go over this album a little bit. I won't go too far in depth, and that is because I did a review on this album over on Garrett's channel, of course, SoundLab Studios, who I collaborated on many occasions. We actually did a whole video reviewing this album. It was me, Garrett, Nick, and Jason. We all gave our thoughts on this album. So I'll leave a link to that video in the description so you go in and check out that one so you can hear our in-depth thoughts. But I'll give you the abridged version. I mean, of course, Rick Davies and Roger Hodgson write all the songs on here, and yes, some great songwriting here. You have Gone Hollywood, really great opening track. Then you have the Logical song, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. Just everything about it is so good. Like the bass playing, the vocals, let's see what else. I was gonna say something else. Oh, the keyboards on here, of course, the sax solo. Just incredible stuff. Then you have Goodbye Stranger, awesome song. Great falsetto chorus by Rick on that one. Breakfast in America, the title track, 2 minutes, but they packed so much into it. Oh Darling, probably not the most well-known song on side 1, but still very good. Side 2 opens up with Take the Long Way Home. Great, another one of their classics. Lord Is Mine, a good Roger ballad. Just Another Nervous Wreck, probably the best deep cut on here. I just love that song. Casual Conversations, probably my least favorite song on the album, but again, there's no bad song on here. And then it closes out with Child of Vision. Really good. Probably the most proggy song on the album, and good keyboard again on here. Just great playing all the way through. So again, perfect album in my opinion. Close to 10 out of 10 though. It's kind of ironic. I said it was a perfect album, but yeah, I still wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10. Anyhow, regardless. So with that out of the way, let's shift back to here. Bet you missed this cam, didn't you? So let's go more in depth on the packaging. Of course, it goes without saying that this is an iconic cover. Of course, you have this waiter here. It's supposed to be like you're looking out of an airplane, of course. See, there's the window here. And you're looking out into what is essentially a parody of New York City. Of course, you have, I already mentioned the waiter who's supposed to be the Statue of Liberty. Then you have New York back there with all the like food and other kitchen appliances. Then you have these two, which of course is supposed to be the Twin Towers. And you know, might as well mention that whole conspiracy about how it's predicted 9/11, which, you know, there's the 11, this is supposed to be the 9. If you look in a mirror, it's supposed to be backwards. I'm like, really? Anyhow, I'm not going to go in depth on that, but yeah, good cover. And of course, you know, on the back, you have just the picture of the band at a diner, just enjoying some breakfast in America. Yeah, very great packaging. And of course, let's quickly show the other things it came with. So it actually came with the original liner notes. So here it is, or the original inner sleeve, whatever you want to call this. This is the first side. Just gives you the credits here, then the lyrics, of course. Then here's the other side as well, which has lyrics to the rest of the songs. Very nice. And this one I actually will show the record because the first and second side are actually a little bit different. Sounds incredible, by the way. The production is another thing worth noting. Let me just make sure I'm holding it correctly. So here's side one. Hopefully you can see that. You have a picture of the waiter with a front view. Here we go. And on the second side, you have the same waiter, but you have the back view. So yeah, I mean, I know it won a couple Grammys, but it definitely won a Grammy for best packaging, and you can definitely see why. Just some really nice imagery that they utilize on this particular album. All right, with that out of the way, let's quickly move back over here and let's showcase my CD copy, which I do own. I actually bought this first, but yeah, basically a truncated version of the vinyl, which of course it's fine. Let's take out the disc. Here it is, very nice. Then you have the inside, which is just the band logo and the name of the album. Not much to say. Booklet. Got the lyrics. Again, just keeping in tradition what the original liner notes was, which is nice. All right, well, great album, and it's my number 3 for the best album of 1979. And now we move on to number 2 on my list. Now, this is a pretty influential album for the post-punk genre. And of course, talking about Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures. I definitely want to go more in depth on this album at some point. I want to do like a whole video going over Joy Division, almost like a retrospective of Joy Division one day. So I'm probably going to save a lot of my thoughts for that. It's going to take a while to make though. But regardless, yes, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. I'm not sure where exactly it would place, but pretty high, honestly. Just basically, to me, I mean, of course, there's going to be people who aren't going to get it, especially when they first listen to it. Trust me, like, when I first heard this album, I did not get it at first, because I was kind of, because, you know, I'm not the hugest punk fan. I do like some punk, but not like a huge fan. And of course, the production was kind of a bit different, and Ian Curtis's vocals can be a turnoff for some people, because, you know, he has a very low, at times monotone voice. But for me, what clicks eventually for me is that at certain points in my life, this album really sums up some of the emotional stuff I was going through at a certain point in my life. The sounds of darkness, sounds of like isolation, emptiness. I've been through moments where I felt that way, and this album kind of helped me get through that, because it really was like somebody felt the same ways I was feeling, And so I just have that emotional connection to it. And that's something, it's the same emotional connection I have with pretty much the whole Joy Division catalog. I mean, there's only 2 albums, so it's not much. But still, you know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, just like, I'm gonna try to go through the song listing in my head, because apparently this thing does not include it. Let's see. So you have Disorder, which is probably the most commercial sounding song on the album. It's definitely the most, it's probably the song that's probably the most crowd pleasing, or for the general people, I would say, because it has, right off the bat, it has a great drum beat by Stephen Morris, and then you have the bass by Peter Hook, and the bass playing on this album, like in general, some really great stuff. It's really high in the mix. You can hear, it's very audible, and the bass lines, they're pretty simple, but still you feel it. Really underrated bass player Peter Hook is. Then of course you have some of the guitar stuff done by Bernard Sumner. It's either Sumner or Summer. Regardless, some really nice guitar work. Again, not too flashy, but again, just suits the song well. And then you have Ian Curtis, who writes all the lyrics. And again, like I said, his vocals aren't going to be for everyone, but to me, on that song, he definitely shows his a bit of range. Again, he doesn't have the highest range, but I definitely feel his emotion and his kind of his emptiness, his loneliness that he portrays. Let's see. Then after that, you have Day of the Lords. Again, more dark, definitely really diving into that darker theme. This one, of course, dealing with war, which of course was a big thing during that time. I'm going to be skipping around a bit. Candidate, another good bass line on that track. Again, just keeps a very steady beat. Then you have She's Lost Control, which of course, that was a very personal song for Ian Curtis, because that song was about, because Ian used to work at like an office space which helps like disabled people find work, and one of the people he encountered was a person with epilepsy, and Ian would later be diagnosed with epilepsy, which was something he would struggle with throughout the remainder of his life. And the person actually had a seizure in front of him, and he saw that, and he just felt that connection. And so the whole She's Lost Control is basically writing about this particular person just not having control over their body. And again, like I said, Ian would go through the same things when he would suffer from epilepsy. So yeah, just there's definitely that emotion. Again, that bass line, that very high bass line that Peter Hook does, just adds to the whole eeriness, the whole darkness of it. Let's see, Shadow Play was another pretty well-known song on the album. And so again, I can go more in depth on this album, but again, like I said, it's not, I've said this many times already, but again, it's not for everyone. But once you have that emotional connection, this album will never leave you. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's talk about the packaging now. This is a 2-disc set. And of course, it has this iconic album cover, which you might have seen somebody wear a shirt with this. Of course, this is supposed to be like a radio wave, if I'm not mistaken, or some kind of like wave test or something. Sound wave, whatever you want to say. Open it up. The packaging is very sparse. Again, perfectly reflects the music. And so we open it up. The 2 discs. So here's the original album here, and this is actually a kind of an official bootleg of one of their live shows. Again, it's not like good quality audio wise, but you know, it's definitely a nice, interesting. So it does include, I was wrong. It actually does include the track listing, which I kind of wish I remembered that when I was going through the track list. But I got pretty much most of the songs I wanted to talk about on here. Let's see. Yep, so not much to say there. Produced by Martin Hannett. So again, production is very interesting, very unique. Open it up. Here, there's a picture of Peter Hook, the bass player, on there. There's Factory Records, which is where they did the recording. A note, here's like a kind of a note by a publication talking about the album. So it was Sumner. So it was Bernard Sumner who I was trying to say. Just giving you some history. Here's a picture of the band. So of course, it's interesting they specifically chose a photo where Ian Curtis is facing away. Again, if you know Ian Curtis's story, you know there's actually a little bit of symbolism to that. Definitely a sad ending. And another photo of the factory. So this is kind of like I'm supposed to do that, I guess. All right. So there you have it. That is number 2 for my list. And as always, for the final time, before we get to number 1, let's showcase some honorable mentions.
Calling to the faraway towns. Head games, it's you and me, baby. Oh, baby, I'm gonna love you.
And finally, my number 1 favorite album of 1979 goes to Pink Floyd, The Wall. Some of you might have expected this one. I mean, The Wall is like one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely a top 5. Just gonna throw that out there. But yes, to many people, this is kind of like the last of their classic period, and I would kind of agree with that. It's a concept album telling the story of Pink, a rock star, just going through isolation and depression, largely due to the trauma he experienced growing up. Lost his father in the war. Has a very overprotective mother, has trouble making connections with people, and all that angst, all that sadness, all that heartbreak is all on this album. And again, like I said with the Joy Division pick, I just have that emotional connection of it, of building a metaphorical wall around yourself, just isolating yourself from people around you. Definitely not a healthy way of dealing with it. But again, I feel like everybody at some point, even if you deny it, at some point you've built a wall around yourself. And this album is just like perfect, just pretty much sums up that feeling perfectly, in my opinion. You know, there are some people who aren't a fan of The Wall because, you know, some people say it's bloated. There's some songs that are kind of fillery, or you know, they're not a fan of the concept at all. So to those people, be quiet for a bit. Let's move on. So I'm not going to go through every track because there's 26 songs on here in total. So again, I'm not going to go in depth, but again, there's some classic songs on here. Of course, you have Another Brick in the Wall. Part 2 is the most famous section. There's 3 parts technically, but part 2 is the one that definitely gets the most radio play. Comfortably Numb, another drop dead classic, one of the greatest guitar solos ever by David Gilmour. Absolutely, I still get goosebumps when I hear that. Run Like Hell, good rock song on here. Some other songs worth noting. Hey You, again, just the emptiness you feel from it. Just the desperation, especially during that moment of the story. Young Lust is another song worth noting, another good rock song. Let's see, Mother, The Trial, just this big theatrical piece, which again, I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. But yeah, of course, the cover is great as well. Of course, if you get the original vinyl, it actually doesn't have the red lettering. It actually was just a blank wall. I do hope to get this on record one day. But yeah, of course, the movie's worth noting. So if we open it up, you have images. You have the images. Here we go. Let's see. Let's showcase the discs. see. See, let me just carefully slide the discs out. Hopefully I don't ruin them. There we go, we got them. They come in this nice kind of white, grayish look to it. I actually like how these look. Very, very nice. Of course, here's the booklet. Handwritten lyrics. Of course, the problem is it's kind of hard to read because it's in this very thick cursive. And again, all with this white backdrop, white brick wall. Then you have more images. Almost done here. Last page. Keep it short and sweet. It's basically one of those, they just let the music do the talking. Alright, so that is it. That is my favorite album of 1979. And thus marks the end of this 70s series. So for those who have stuck around for the whole series, thank you very much for watching this. This was definitely went on a bit longer than I would have expected, as a lot of my series do. But hopefully you have enjoyed this little journey I've been through, just kind of reflecting on the 70s. Again, there's so many albums that I left out throughout this whole series, and of course that's where all of you came in. Of course, in the comments, you all gave your favorite albums of throughout this whole series. Just some great stuff I saw, some things we had in common, some things we didn't have in common, and some things I have not heard before, and maybe at some point I'll check them out. So again, thank you very much for sticking around with this series. We'll see what I do next. I have some ideas. We'll see what will happen. But regardless, of course, if you have enjoyed this video, please give the video a like. And if you're new, please subscribe to the channel. Again, I really appreciate the support I've been getting. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. So take care and goodbye for now.